What's up, family? Or if you don't know me, hey, welcome. I'm Becca. If you're watching this or meeting me for the first time, I am a licensed clinical social worker. I create safe places for the ratchet, the righteous, everything in between, just basically safe spaces for people to show up as their full selves, regardless of the season, and help people. And I walk people through their healing and help them thrive wherever they are in life. And so my process is that I create spaces free of judgment and just meet you where you're at and provide support through that way. And so I wanted to share something with you all that God's been putting on my heart, and just a lesson that I've been learning over the past a little over a year now. I've been doing a challenge with a homie I met in Arkansas when I did City Year in Little Rock. What was that, in 2014. And so we've been doing 31 days of what is it? I can't even talk. 31 chapters of Proverbs in 31 days. So today is day 4, and like day 4 rocked me because it really showed me and like put together this like in a package of what I had been experiencing and what I kind of sensed in my spirit that God was showing me, but I didn't really have confirmation. And I've been really working on growing my discernment and trusting myself in the past year. That's something that a lesson that I used to, like, if you were like me, I used to like ask every person and their mama about what I should do in a situation. Should I do this? Should I do that? Like, what do you think? Oh, I don't want to do this. What do you think is the best process? What do you think is this? And I didn't trust myself, and that was a huge thing of that I had to overcome, because it's like, dude, like, these people don't have a revelation of what God's called you to do, what you feel is right in your spirit, what you know that like you need to do. And these like my friend sent me a post, like, no one has a, it's like they don't know what your purpose is. And so there was no conference call between them and God about what you were supposed to do. And how many times do we rush God? And that's what this is about. Like, how I rushed God and bamboozled myself in the process. I used to tell my old boss, it's like, I got bamboozled. Like, I got bamboozled by leaving my job, leaving a safe environment. And then I went into a space where, man, like, my body screamed like of like trauma. Like, it was just like all the wounds of these past work relationships or past work situations. Just like my body knew that this wasn't the right place. And so we'll back up of how I got to that place and how God's been redeeming that time and walking me through. And so I want to say, in like, I don't know, sometime on my timeline, it's on there, but maybe in like 2019, I posted how I felt like a new season was coming. And a lot of times before a shift or transition, like, you'll sense it in your spirit. You sense it in your spirit that there's a change coming. And for me, a change always meant that I was changing a job, changing living location. I was moving. One time I moved across the continent. I was in Africa for 5 months. And if you want to know more about that, you can ask me. At 19, I did that. And it's like God showed me so much through that. So it was like my limited knowledge and understanding meant that I was moving. And sorry, I thought the time cut out. It did not. And that's what I thought it meant. And so I was, I had prayed for this job. I had prayed for, to still be in the community that I was serving. I had been in Azusa serving for probably Azusa, California. I don't know, since like 2009, and it was 2017, and I was still serving in the community, and I wasn't ready. 2017. And I wasn't ready to leave. And, God opened the doors for me to be in this therapy job, or provide school-based therapy. And I was like, the moment that I started, I was like, dang, like, I totally forgot that I don't like to do therapy all the time, and that's not my ministry. But I failed to remember that that wasn't the stopping place for me. That I always knew that that wasn't the stopping place for me, and I lost sight of the vision. I lost sight of the path. I lost sight of the road that I always wanted to go into policy and legislation, and I knew that I needed to learn the stories of the people. And I never wanted to be a legislator that created policies that didn't understand the stories of the people. So that's why I had a strong foundation in community development, community engagement, nonprofits. And so that's why I got my master's degree in social work, and I focused on the clinical side of social work, building those one-on-one skills, because that was never a goal of mine, or that wasn't a strength of mine. And yeah, I was able to connect with people, but the actual like understanding the trauma and the background of how things happen. And so flash forward, I get to this job, and months in I start applying for new ones, and I'm like, I got my credential in child welfare and attendance and school social work, and I'm like, I'm not doing any of it. And I started becoming miserable, and I had to remind myself, it's like, dude, you prayed for this. God opened the door, and you're around amazing people. Like, your supervisor and your boss is so dope. Like, she's speaking so much wisdom and life into you, and you're walking through a really tough season with her. You're able to work part-time, you're able to go to therapy, you're able to do all these things, and you're still trying to get out of it. But I lost sight of that. I lost sight of the path. And so flash forward, I feel that shift. I feel like it's finally time. So I had applied for these jobs. I would be in the interview, and because I had gone through such like crazy work experiences already, I knew in my spirit when a job wasn't right for me in the interview, or before the interview even started. And so I was like, no, it's not time. It's not time. And so I got an interview, and it didn't work out. And so I was like, okay, this isn't it. But I was so set on leaving that I ended up getting a call in January. And I think I posted about that too, that I was like, oh, like, I remember laying in bed, it was like 5 a.m. and I'm like, man, Lord, like, I would love to just go be asked, like, for someone to see me. That's what I wanted. I wanted someone to see me. I was like, for someone to see me and offer me a job, because they knew the skills that I brought, because I knew where I was. I knew all the skills I had, but I wasn't operating in that, and I wasn't in spaces that were actually where I was able to live up to my potential. And I was really struggling, because it's like God has us in these waiting seasons for what feels like years. Like, I didn't leave until 2020. And so here I was thinking, like, this is it. I read the job description. Me and my boss went over it. She's like, Bex, this is made for you. And so I was like, yes. Like, when I got that call, I'm like, this is it. This was God. This was God opening the door. Tell me why 2 weeks later that I left 9 days later. So I left February 2011. No, I mean, sorry. February 11th, 2020. Started February 20th, 2020. Tell me why I go to this job and I come home crying, because this job is not what I thought. This job was not what I was like, Lord, you told me, like, you opened the door, you showed me that this was right. Why did I not, like, what the heck happened here? Like, what? And I'm like, I got bamboozled. They lied to me in the interview. I work with kids. Now I'm working with adults and the parents. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, this is like, I'm doing case management. I'm like, I've already, like, I've done that in undergrad. And what? Like, I have my license, and I can provide therapy to kids. And I was thinking, I was like, oh, like, I've always, like, I felt so attached to that community, that like the job that I was at now. And then like, so then I was questioning every life decision, like, man, but God, if you called me to this, then why is it going like this? What's wrong? Like, did I not hear you? Did you not open the door? Did you not say yes? Like, what was it? And as like months went on, God showed me, it's like, I didn't tell you to leave. You rushed the process. You thought it was time to leave. You thought it was time to go. So I was like, Hefa, like, dude, like, you're so set on leaving. Fine, I'll let you leave. I'll let you leave to show you that that's not where you're supposed to be. That's not where I want you. That's like totally opposite of the path. Like, you were after money because it was a full-time position and paid you really well, and you got good benefits, and it was gonna get you to the next stage in life of where you want to be, because you were focused on money. And I'm realizing that right now, like, that God showed me that this morning, when it's like, so I'll read you the verse that kind of pieced it all together, and it was in Proverbs 4:25-27 in the New Living Translation, and it says, "Look straight ahead and fix your eyes on what lies before you. Mark out a straight path for your feet. Stay on the safe path. Don't get sidetracked. Keep your feet from following evil." So, it's like the Bible says, people think it says the root of all evil is money, but it's like, no, the root of all evil is not money. God wants you to have a good foundation. He wants you to have generational wealth, but the love of money, I was thinking the love, like, to get money meant that I was getting to the next place, and I was getting way more because I knew that I deserved more. I knew that I was worth more. But it was like, yeah, you'll get there, but it's not time right now. It is not time right now. And so, so as I was reading that, I was like, damn. Like, what stuck out to me, like, I read you a little note that I wrote from that. And it's like, when you look at that verse, it says he's leading, or I'm sorry, it says it doesn't say, the Bible doesn't say let God make out a straight path. He says you make out a straight path for your feet and stay there, not wander or get distracted from the goal. It's your responsibility to keep your feet on the path. And don't blame God when we get ourselves into messes. Like, the path was always to go into legislation. The path was always to, gain experiences along the way to get to that place. It wasn't to work in in that space. It wasn't to get money. It wasn't to work with kids for the rest of my life, which is what I was working with urban youth, and I was set. Like, I created my whole master's program around serving urban youth because I was so set on that, and I lost sight of the path. I lost sight of the vision. I had this vision in 2013 when I graduated my bachelor's, and by 2017, 2020, I had forgotten. And that's my fault. That's my fault that I lost sight of that. And so, and so it says, like, so in the note I wrote, it's like, people say God allowed this to happen, because I know that I did all the time. Like, or it's something I'm working on, and something that God's been showing me in the past year, that it's like, yeah, sometimes I show you that, I allow things to happen to show you that that's not where you were supposed to be. That's not where you were supposed to go. And so people say God allowed this to happen or that to happen, so it must be good. But if it doesn't feel right, it's probably to show you what happens when you don't heed wisdom and get sidetracked from the goal or the purpose or where you're going. Because, like, dude, if you read Proverbs, it's like all about wisdom and discernment, and I'll talk about that more. Like, it's like wisdom could be screaming at you in the face, and because you're not practicing that, and you're not growing your skills, and not trusting yourself, and not, where, it's like people talk about your intuition, your gut. That's wisdom. That's discernment. That's the Spirit. That's, it's like, that's God gives us the Holy Spirit so that we may not be able to see with our eyes, but we can see with our spirit. And so if your spirit is off, trust that. Trust that, so you don't get into situations that you're gonna regret after, and then you say, God, can you get me out of this? How do I get out of this? What do I do? But it's like, dude, did God even get you in that place in the first, like, did God even invite you in? Did God even get you there in the first place? No, you got yourself into that, and now you got to figure it out. He's always gonna, like, the beautiful thing about God, though, is that he he allows us to see these things so we have that hindsight vision. And it's like 20, that quote, like, what is it, hindsight is always 2020. I don't know what the quote is, anyways. I'm really bad at that, like remembering off the top of my head sometimes. But it's like, so anyways, so when you look back, it's like, I should have known, I should have done this. And don't should on yourself. It's like, you, at the time, you did the best with what you could. Like, yes, we could have listened to our gut, listened to what our spirit was saying, listened to what discernment was saying. And so you can do that, but it means now you're starting from wisdom. You're starting to see what happens when you do listen to yourself. And it's like practicing that little by little each day. It's like you have that sense, maybe I should do this, do that. Maybe I shouldn't go there, don't go there. Like, simple things. Think how many times people say, man, like, I didn't go to this place because I felt this. And then what happens? Something bad happens to that. Or I think how many times, like, I've been in relationships and it's like, dude, my spirit was off. My spirit was off before I even entered into that space, and even before I invited someone into my life. My spirit was off, but I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know why. And so because I wasn't patient and I wanted to rush things and chalk that up to fear, or chalk that up to like fear of a good man or whatever. But it's like, dude, like, if he's a good man, he's going to consistently be a good man. And if it's meant for you, then sit back, observe him, observe the process, observe his character for longer than 3 weeks. And then you'll see why your spirit was off, because time will reveal things if you're open to it, if your eyes are open, if you're willing to see it. And so I think about how many situations, like, I stayed too long because I didn't trust my spirit, or I was like, what would people think about me? Or what would that make me look like? Or how will this affect other people? Like, you got to think about yourself, because they're not living with you. They're not living with, the consequences and repercussions of not trusting your spirit, of not listening to your intuition. Like, they're going home and going about their business, and you're sitting with the choices that you're making or not making, and choosing not to act on those things. And so, I mean, that's what I got for you today. Like, just trust your gut, man. Like, the more you learn to trust yourself, and the more you stop focusing on the outside and what people and how many voices, okay, let me talk about this too. I think about how much of my friendships were set up around me asking for their advice. And when I stopped asking my friends for what I should do in situations, my relationships changed. I was like, shoot, what do I have to talk to them about? What do I have to offer if they're not coming to me for advice? And you set up your relationships that way. And it's like, dang, like, I set up my friendships for X, Y, and Z to come to me for things. And when you stop, giving so much of yourself to other people, you'll see the shift. You'll see the change. It'll like, life and friendships and relationships will naturally change course the more that you honor yourself and start trusting yourself and start listening to what your spirit is saying and what to be truth. But you're waiting for someone else to validate that. You're waiting for someone else to validate the dreams, the plans, the vision that God already placed in your heart. And so I think about how long, like, God had placed this idea of a business, of walking people through healing, of motivating people and speaking life and sharing my story. And God put that in my spirit in probably 2017. But I was waiting for someone to confirm it. I was waiting for someone to see me, and I wanted someone to say, it's like, hey, it's time. And I thought it was time before, and I wrote about that and I posted. It's like, oh, like, I'm gonna share more of my story. And my coach recently, like, she was talking about transparency versus vulnerability, and I think back and I'm like, dang Lord, like my spirit was off and my spirit was scared, and I wasn't running. I wasn't running from sharing because it wasn't time. My spirit was saying, you need to go through this on your own. You need to walk through it on your own and not invite so many people into the process, because you're going to get caught up with giving so much of yourself away that you're not going to be able to sit with it. Oh, I just lifted out my shirt. You're not going to be able to sit with all that I'm doing and I want to heal and the layers I want to peel back, because you're going to be so focused on everyone else that you're not going to, trust, or you're not going to be able to experience all that I want to. And so now I know it's the right time to share and to be vulnerable, and to walk in these things and walk out the plans that he had for me. And okay, so really in like the policy and legislation, like that part, like where I'm like, my coach was saying again, like it was like last Monday, I think I had the revelation that I was listening to a playback of our session, and she was saying how you're not going to know how to serve the people unless you know the pain points and the stories of the people and you've been there. And I was like, holy crap, like, oh my gosh, Lord, like I thought I was meant to go into policy. I thought I was meant to go into legislation. I thought I was meant to do all these different things, but you put it on my heart in 2012, 2013 to learn the stories of the people and to help the community, and for at a larger scale for this, not for legislation, not for policies and all that stuff. Like, yeah, that's great, I think that's amazing, but that's not where he has me. And so that's what you see me posting. We were doing a challenge in this coaching program I'm doing, and so it's like so many beautiful things have come from that. And when you show up and when it's your time, you're gonna know because it's gonna feel right in your spirit. Things are gonna start moving. It's going to feel natural. This whole process has been super scary and stretching, but it's like, God has been doing such a work in me over the past year. And so with that job, it's like, that was a whole process that I'll share about. I may or may not share about, anytime soon, but it's been like a dope thing to just like in this season of trusting God, like, and, I've heard his voice like more like clearly than I ever have in my life. And so it's like God still used it. God still used my rushing the process and not listening and not following the path to get me to where I needed to be. And that's right here. And that's talking to you, and that's sharing my story and the lessons that I've learned. And it's like, and there's gonna be more in-depth stuff and more more personal things that I'm going to share, which is really scary. And on Monday I was crying and just like, that's where the surrender came from. It's like, man, Lord, like you want me to share that? You want me to share these intimate things that I've gone through? But it's like, I know it's for your glory. I know this is what I prayed for. But now that it's here, like I share with people what I want them to know. But now it's sharing with things that he wants them to know, and what he wants you guys to know. So be prepared. I'm going to be sharing a lot more, and I think there's going to be so many beautiful things that are going to come from that. Just spaces that are going to be created, and a community, building a community of people that feel safe to share their stories too, that feel safe to, speak into the lives of one another, that can share how God's got them through, or even if they're not believers, it's like, I worked in school districts, like I know how to, public schools, I know how to interact and navigate with people that are at all levels. I have friends that, that range on all spectrums. So this is not just something for believers, but it's like wherever you're at in life, like I am here to meet you where you're at, to create a safe space for you, to show up, to exist. Like, if all you can do these days is exist, like, hey, you're here and you chose to stay, you chose to be here, and you're still breathing, which means, like, if you're still breathing, there's still purpose in you. And that's not to say, and I'm gonna get emotional, that is not to say that if you're not breathing, that there's no purpose, or that person died because they didn't have a purpose to serve anymore. Because my grandmother just passed in December, and there was so much life in her left. But I don't know why things happen, and I'm not going to say, like, you know, everything happens for a reason, because we may never know that reason on this side of heaven. We may never know that. And so I'm not a, you know, we don't know why things happen, but I know that God's going to use that. I know that God uses everything, and nothing is wasted, and I've seen that, and that's where I am so confident that He's going to use this for His glory. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at, and that's what this is all about. And follow me at Out of the Concrete. I actually wasn't even gonna share that, but yeah, so I'll post it in my bio. And if you want to be one of the first to be in on what's going on and what I'm starting and creating and what this is all leading up to, I'll post the of the page, or the profile link in there. There's nothing on the page, but yeah, be a part of things. So all right, hope you have a great Thursday, and I probably have mochos on my face. I am a, like, very emotional person normally, so I guarantee there will probably be a lot of tears throughout when I share things. But that's the beauty of who I am. I am a person that feels things deeply, and I used to be really sensitive or insecure. I mean, sensitive was something that people used against me. Oh, you're too sensitive, you're too this, you're too that. And so we'll talk about that another day. But now I realize, like, how beautiful of a gift it is to feel things deeply, to cry the tears of my ancestors who didn't get to cry tears. And Dr. Tama had spoken about that, and I was listening to her podcast a few years ago, and I know I keep trying to end this, but there's so many stories. And she said, if you're the crier in your family, like, you've been appointed to cry the tears of generations that didn't get to cry before you. And it was so freeing. It was so freeing to hear that. And so if you're the crier in your family, know that it's a gift. See it as a gift. Like, it is such a, like, there's magic in that. There's so much healing that comes from releasing the tears and the weight of generations before you. And it's a heavy weight to carry. I know, I feel it all the time. But you were appointed for this. You were anointed for this. You were, you know, that God saw something in you and gave you that gift, gave you that ability. And God is so intentional. He is so intentional in how He created each of us. And we each have something to offer and to bring and add to spaces. And so I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's to come. And I'll be putting out some devotionals. And so eventually, soon I'll be dropping a 7-day devotional. And so I'm announcing that now, put myself in check to keep myself accountable. Yeah, so join in on things, be part of stuff. And I hope you guys have a great day or night or next day, week, whenever you watch this. All right, bye.